I find this particular shape of GT3 RS, the 992, to be kind of a weird one in terms of how it reacts to tuning, in particular in GT7, because I already sang its praises in my review of the update as a whole. It's a fantastic car, straight out of the box, it's very forgiving, and one of the best things about the GT3, and even more so the RS, is how it's pretty much the closest thing you can get to a road-going GT class race car with a number plate. They're very forgiving at the same time though, which makes them so accessible in terms of their performance. Not only can you break lap records, but it will be so much easier to do it in that car than it ever should be. And even in the game you've got stuff like DRS which you can engage. It has so much aero that you can't even change any of it, which is a little bit disappointing. It would have been cool to make it even crazier visually, but for the moment that's what you've got to work with. Thankfully the aero that is there isn't just for show, it actually serves a purpose. And again, the 911, from when I've driven them in real life, I went from already respecting the cars to totally understanding why people love them so much. I completely get it. The 911 is a fantastic machine, and the ones that I drove spanned from the 997 to the 996 to even the 993 in the 90s, and even through such a big span of time, they felt fantastic for their time. So, like I said, I totally get why they are such good cars, and I can't even imagine how good this one must feel because I haven't driven one yet in real life. It is a beast, but it doesn't react very well to tuning, I've noticed that, or at least in one way in particular. See, there are some cars in Gran Turismo that have a bit of a weird reaction to, in particular, a change in ride height. And this seems to be one of them, because the only thing I can make sense of in terms of why it's reacting so weirdly is that change. Because you'll see it probably once or twice here at Catalunya when coming down the home straight, when you slam on the anchors at the end of the straight to get into that corner, or even if you don't fully engage the brakes but just quite a bit, it sometimes feels almost like it's got stuck in a rut in the road and then will suddenly swerve off to the right or to the left, to the point of, if I recall correctly, even going off the track on one of the laps here. That's kind of a weird response to just braking hard, which is something which an RS is going to be doing a lot of. And again, it doesn't do it when it's in its stock form, at least that I noticed. So it does seem to be a car that you do want to be a bit careful of changing the ride height too much. You may even want to stay around stock ride height, in fact, because it's not exactly that high off the ground to begin with. And it's not the first time that stuff like that has happened in Gran Turismo. For me, the one that always stands out was the Veyron. The Veyron used to be very, very reactive to that, especially at high speeds, to the point where on Route X, if you had the ride height set too low, it would automatically raise itself and it pretty much would not turn at all. That makes sense in a straight line, but as soon as you come to a corner, it's kind of a problem. So with this one, I would be careful of that. With that being said though, this thing is a weapon, and although it's easy to take for granted, oh, it's just another 911, of course it's going to be quick, all of those things are true. Yes, it is just another 911, yes it is very quick, yes it is very good, and it's not even that expensive. It's a, 340,000 credit car, which is pretty cheap by super sports car or even supercar standards. So yeah, it does do everything you'd expect it to, and even its spec sheet is really good. 517 horsepower, 1450 kilos, might be a little bit heavier than you might expect for a 911, and of course 911s are physically bigger now, which of course adds to the weight. It is still rear engine, rear wheel drive, naturally aspirated, stock, and the point level is appropriately high, 656, before you've even done anything to it. Now with that price tag of 340,000, at the very least you should definitely be considering taking this on as a replacement maybe for an existing 911 that you may have already been using. Of course, the older models have their fans, myself included. I'm particularly partial to a 997. I do love that generation, especially the 997.1 in GT3 form. It's a fantastic looking car. And of course a turbo would be nice, but those have been kind of strangely omitted from Gran Turismo so far, which is a shame because the turbo is a beast. For now though, this I think is a fantastic new addition. I would have perhaps preferred a turbo if I had the choice, and if I did have the option, I probably would not have gone for a 992 turbo, as great as I'm sure it would have been. To me, it's a little bit understated visually. A nice 997 or even a 993 turbo would have been pretty cool, but as it stands, it is a fantastic car. There's not really too much to say about it in terms of some kind of a revelation that you weren't expecting. Again, it is a 911. It's in a newer form. It's a GT3 RS, so everything you're expecting it to be, it pretty much is. It's what it already was, but even better. And that's the beauty of the 911. They just take what already works and they make it better and better and better, to the point where we're now at a stage where there kind of isn't anything about the 911 that doesn't work. It does everything you could possibly want a GT3 RS to be. And of course I'm referring mostly to real life. In a game you could always say, well, more power, more this, more that, but realistically, I think anyone who buys one of these in real life is probably going to be more than happy with what they get. In the game, it's a fantastic bit of kit, and like I said earlier on, it's about as close as you can expect to get to a race car in the road car class, and certainly for this kind of budget, without just buying the more obvious choice of something like a Nissan GTR. It is a fantastic machine, surprisingly forgiving, at least before tuning it, it would seem, and when you do tune it, upgrade it, modify it, just have a bit of caution with that ride height setting. It does have tremendous potential though, so for those who have been using it, have you found that this has replaced perhaps something that you were already using at a certain point level, maybe for certain events, maybe even for cash cow events? It certainly has the potential for that, even at Le Mans for the 700 point level maybe. So yeah, tell me down below, have you found it to be a car that you haven't used, or that's become a go-to for you? I could certainly see it being one or the other for many people. And of course, we do have one or two left to talk about in 1.40, so stick around for those reviews, and until then, I'll see you next time. But for now, thanks for watching.